peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
Today, Kenya is faced with a dilemma. A dilemma caused by succession politics of 2022. A country beaten by forces of peace, unity, against forces of impunity, bad politics, and tribal politics. The good forces of peace, unity, national reconciliation, led by President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, want to live a united, prosperous, one person, one nation, one country called Kenya. The bad forces led by Deputy President William Ruto want to live a divided, broken, damaged, dismembered Kenya without unity of purpose. Kenya today stands at cliffhanger politics. A cliffhanger politics of Machiavellian nature, where at night we praise the devils. During the daytime, we praise the leaders. We go back at night, damage the leadership. That's where Kenya is today. Whichever divide you are, there is only one way out. One way out of this quagmire is to stick to a redemption strategy. Any conflict resolution expert on this panel, like Professor Onyari, will tell you the only way out to save this nation from sinking to the another chaos is to bring out the 9 points of the BPI. All of you know the 9 points of BPI. They touch national ethos, national bad elections. It is a cocktail of disaster that the two leaders saw that the four made them to shake hands and to bring it to the table. That for Kenya to conduct another election in this country without cleaning the national electoral mechanisms, the disaster will be worse than it was before. That for Kenya to go without national healing, reconciliation, accountability, restitution, reparation, truth-telling, forgiveness, we are staring at a disaster if we don't do a reconciliation now and never. It is now and never. Embarking on an early campaign has brought us to where we are. President Uhuru Kenyatta told people to concentrate on nation building. We abandoned the nation building ventures. We have gone on personal crusade ventures. We have gone on the same path where we believe we glorify corruption and glorify many things that are not glorifiable. It is sad, therefore, for my people of Kenya. It is also a call to the people of Kenya. Either they choose to go with the redemption strategy or they perish. The choice remains the choice of the people of Kenya. If you want to go with a redemption strategy of Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta of uniting this nation, that so be it. If you want to go with obsession of 2022 politics, even when there is no referee, and even when there is no competitor, yet the choice is yours. But at the end of the day, the citizens of this country are tired. If you don't see the fatigue that has come amongst the citizens who are being used as wheelbarrow pushers, who are being used as machines that will break in a day and you don't have any spare part to repair it, but it was done for PR, it is up to you. Do you empower people to push a wheelbarrow, or you empower people with knowledge? During this COVID-19, Rwanda, as a country that was besieged by the same disease that we see here, the disease of a creation of a hustler versus a dynasty. It is not different from the disease of a Tutsi versus a Hutu. You are not seeing what I'm seeing. Oh ye Kenyans, believe me, believe in me. You are not seeing what I'm seeing. You have created a narrative of a hustler versus a dynasty. It is like a Tutsi versus a Hutu versus a Tutsi. Look ye ahead. Look ye ahead in the horizon and see what is coming in 2022. It will be the battle of those that you want to eliminate against those who will be defending themselves. If you don't take my notes here, I will carry my dust. As the Bible said, go away with my dust. Because I see, from my vision, I can see we are on a wrong path. We have about to cross the red line. We are creating sections. We are fragmenting a state. We are dismembering a state. We are creating hurtling. Our train is hurtling towards one word. And that one word is conflict. That one word, my panel, is conflict. We better stop the train hurtling towards conflict and stop it now. Thank you.
A very good afternoon to you, and thank you for joining us. This is Africa Showdown. My name is Miriam Ogutu, and today we have a lot in store for you. We shall start with the topics on Kenya and looking at BBI. Battle lines have been drawn and why Kenya cannot lose an opportunity for redemption and constitutional changes. And then after that, we shall move to other stories across the continent of Africa, and we'll start with Uganda. Will there be free and fair elections? And judging from what we've been seeing from Uganda, as you know, Uganda is gearing up for its elections earlier next month or next year, and so a lot has been happening there. And then we skip over to Ghana, which is also going to its elections. Old rivals square it out on Monday, and then after that we go to Somalia. What next after the United States troop withdraw from Somalia? We've known President Donald Trump there has given a deadline as to when he wants the troops from the US to move out of Somalia, and I think the deadline should be on the 15th of January. So what next there for Somalia, which we know even right now is not very stable. And then after that we shall go to South Africa, where President Cyril Ramaphosa is also facing his own battles there, and now they want to remove him through the vote of no confidence. And perhaps after in that we will explain a little further how the democracy there in the South Africa works, and maybe perhaps that is what we should all adopt here across the continent. So we have so much in store for you. To help me out in this conversation, I'm joined by Douglas Kirimi from Meru. Douglas, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Miriam. Good afternoon to all our viewers. Good afternoon to my friend Wakili Kidimwaga. Good afternoon to my friend Javan, and also my friend Son Wasonga. And good afternoon to everyone from Meru.
Okay, good afternoon to you too. And also we're joined by Daniel Wasonga from Nairobi. Daniel, good afternoon.
Yes, very good afternoon, Miriam Ogutu at our headquarters. Good afternoon to my good friend Douglas Kirimi Bundi in Meru. Good afternoon, my good friend Kidi Mwaga. Good afternoon, Javan Karanja in Nanyuki. Our viewers in Kenya, Africa, and the rest of the world. Good afternoon, morning, good evening, depending from where you're watching us from.
All right, and also we are joined by Javan Karanja from Nanyuki. Javan, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Miriam. Good afternoon to our viewers, wherever they are catching this broadcast from. And good morning to my co-panelists, Wakili Kidi Mwanga, Daniel Wesonga, and Douglas Kiremi.
Why
Yes.
good morning? Why good morning to Wakili? He's in Nairobi, not in Europe. And even in Europe, I think it's afternoon right now. But in the US, it's morning, I think. But all the same, thank you so much. And finally, we're joined by Kidi Mwanga. Kidi, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Miriam. Nice to show up here. And good afternoon and morning to our viewers across the globe, depending on their various time zones. And I'm glad to be here. As
Okay.
always.
All right. It's a pleasure to have all of you on board today, being a Sunday afternoon. And right now, when you walk around the streets of Nairobi, the Christmas spirit seems to have arrived. And, you walk around and you feel the festive season. But people have to understand it cannot be business as usual, as the dangers of COVID-19 are still here with us. So if you really don't have to travel, then don't. And I know that will be a very difficult, decision for a lot of Kenyans who are used to traveling, especially to their countryside or their villages during this time. But it's not a very wise thing to do right now, so that you're able to be safe and the people over there are able to be safe, and we can get rid of this corona as soon as possible so that we can resume normalcy. But it is right now. Please be cautious. All right, so we jump into our topic of the day. And as we look at the headlines in Kenya, the battle lines are drawn and why Kenya cannot lose an opportunity for redemption and constitutional change. Let's go straight to the Sunday Standard, and the headlines there say silent battle for BBI, surmounting the challenge. Behind the public glare, a legal battle is being waged against the proposed constitutional review, with at least 5 cases in court. Proponents of the initiative now moving full steam ahead, says the court cannot inject a popular initiative which way the courts. So the story is on page 4 of the Standard newspaper. So let me just read a bit of that, and then we can start our conversation. And behind the public glare, I think I've read that. Now, the Sunday Standard counted at least 5 cases pending before the Supreme Court and the High Court, whose end result could keep the reggae playing, pause the tune, or stop it altogether. But the proponents of the initiative, which had by Friday collected 5 million signatures to endorse the Constitution of Kenya ahead of the verification and onward transmission of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, are confident that courts cannot inject a popular initiative. So let me just leave the rest of the story and go to these petitions. Number one is by Third Way Alliance, and the petition, they're saying High Court petition seeks to restrain BBI Secretariat from presenting collected signatures endorsing the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020 to IEBC for verification. The second one has been is by economist David D. and other activists, and High Court case argues that the process is driven by a few political bigwigs instead of a wave of change by Kenyans. They say 4 chapters of the law cannot be changed through amendments. And then another case, the third case, is by Nandi and Kericho County Assemblies, and they sought Supreme Court's advisory opinion on whether MCAs and the County Assembly can amend the bill sent to them for approval, and whether MCAs ought to seek views of the electorate. And case number 4 is by Makueni Governor Kivutha Kibwana, and he's asked Supreme Court to decide whether the national or county governments can steer a constitutional amendment through a popular initiative. And then the last one, that is the case number 5, is by Nurses Association, and I think we talked about it on Friday or Thursday. They say they want the courts to stop the IEBC from forwarding the referendum bill for debate at the county assemblies, the Senate and National Assembly, but from debating any bill geared at approving the BBI. I'll start with you, Douglas Kirimi. We see there's a lot of hurdles on this BBI process, even as the people supporting it vow to continue with the process.
Thank you, Miriam. I don't believe that those concerns are genuine, and those that people that are looking forward to scattering the BBI process. It is one thing to also understand that that way Alliance, through their former embattled party leader, argued yesterday and said that he spent a whole 1 year to correct 1.2 million signatures for him to be able to change the constitution using his Punguza Mzigo initiative. But this leader, what these leaders and also these activists are forgetting to get through it is that the BBI process is something that is going to benefit Kenyans. And again, it's change, and the way, the manner through which the signatures were corrected and all that, the government was involved, and the people were willing to be able to give out their signatures. BBI process is something that has been able to be discussed by Kenyans for over 2 years. So there is no arguing about why the popular initiative, the BBI process, should not be able to go forward. Another thing that I think that these people are doing is a delay tactic that they have been doing. Whereas that political class have been able to commit themselves to be able to stop it using political rhetoric, now they think they can take it higher and go to courts. And I also believe their cases lack merit, and also they lack substance in terms of why we should not change the constitution. Again, when they say that the BBI process is also led by a few politicians and the political class, we don't understand what they are saying. Because the BBI process is a process that has been endorsed and also been championed by Kenyans for over 2 years. Remember, Kenyans have given their views on what they want in a constitutional change. They have given their mind. They have also elaborated very, very, very clearly what they want changed in this country. And those views have been captured. We've been having people having a to and from to be able to change that document. So Miriam, I think anyone that goes to court and says that it is the political class who wants to change the constitution, and there are also minor things that they cannot precipitate a change of constitution, I don't believe that these concerns are valid. And also I don't believe that they have substance in a court of law, because Kenyans have been moving out of their way to be able to contribute to this process and also endorse this process. So I don't believe it's a process of two people, and I also believe that a constitutional change does not have to amount to overhauling the whole constitution. I don't also believe that we have to change the whole of the half of the constitution for it to be able to be changed. So these amendments are continuous, and also the constitution is a living document, Miriam. So we cannot say that we cannot pass a judgment and also agree with them and say that there is nothing much that can cause a change of constitution there. Those concerns are very varied that people of Kenya raised. The things that Kenyans want changed in the constitution are very varied, Miriam. And what I believe is that the BBI process will receive justice before judiciary. And I also believe those people that are scattering the process now will also agree with us in future. When they bring us their own initiative, especially the popular Punguza Mzigo initiative, when they bring it to the people again, we believe it will not be shot down at the county assemblies like it was. So I believe these are people who are suffering from a lack of support and also suffering from bitterness. They are bitter that their popular initiative to change the constitution didn't go through, but because these people are unpopular and also their initiative didn't ring a bell in the minds of Kenyans. So I believe we should not bring emotions in this process, Miriam. There's a constitutional change. I believe Kidi will tell you emotions don't hold water in a court of law. So these ones are going to be defeated in the morning, and we shall continue forward. And by 21st of June 2021, we shall change the constitution of Kenya, and Kenyans can have their voices and in this constitutional moment. Thank you, Miriam.
All right. So, of course, the Third Way Alliance has sought High Court to stop the process, has sought the High Court petition to seek to restrain BBI Secretariat from presenting collected signatures endorsing the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020 to IEBC for verification. And the Third Way Alliance argues that the BBI initiative was a political truce between President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga that should not be used as a basis to make changes to the Constitution. Javan, are they correct in what they're saying?
Yeah, Miriam, they might be correct from where they sit and from the dimension that they're using to gauge the parameter, to gauge the process of the BBI. But I understand that the Third Way Alliance, they had their own process. And when they tell us that this process of collecting signatures, that they are in denial that you cannot collect 5 million signatures in a week or two, then these people really don't hold water in what they are saying. Because, Miriam, we have no parameters to gauge how much you can get these signatures corrected and what timeline can you get even to 1 million. Them telling us that they collected their 1.2 signatures in 1 year, Miriam. Maybe their initiative was not popular. And Miriam, you understand, this initiative that we have today, BBI, is an initiative that was started by the President of the Republic of Kenya, and then the opposition leader and the ODM party leader, the former Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga. These are big politicians, and we understand they have a huge following. Therefore, it is not a miracle that they can get 5 million signatures in 1 week. That's something that is possible, bearing on the weight that they have in these in matters of politics in this country. And this process, Miriam, the kind of publicity, the kind of advocacy that the BBI process have had is quite significant because these are processes that have took 2 good years and some months to be where we are today. Therefore, this is something that Kenyans have had time to engage, to understand, to see, and to figure out what is in and what is out and what is lacking this process. Kenyans were given enough time to go and take their proposals. Unlike in the Punguza Mzigo, where they came up with their own proposed bill that they termed as Punguza Mizigo, and it was not that kind of involving, and that is the difference that we have between the two processes. That is why you find the BBI is something that is so popular when you go around the country. Therefore, I think Ekuru Aukot and his team, they are in denial, as Douglas saying. They are not believing what
but
they are
Jevan, when he's coming out to say that the initiative was a political truce between President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, that handshake, he's saying it was just for 2 people. So why has it turned into a national process where now we have to change the constitution?
Yeah, the purpose of having the handshake in the first place, this was out of the deplorable state that our country was. In Nairobi, things were not running well. When you went to Mombasa, Kisumu, and these major towns, we had demonstrations that was going once in Monday and in every Thursday in this country, led by the NASA coalition by that time. Therefore, we had a country that was not in good state, and we reached to a point where some people were asked to abandon some goods. They were asked not to buy some products from specific companies. Therefore, this country was not in good state. And when they came together through this handshake, that is when the process of peace, the process of reconciliation, and trying to seal these gaps that we had then before handshake, the problems that we had. Therefore, when we have the handshake, that is when the president under the former prime minister, in their prudence understanding, they came up with this process to ensure that in future, something like that will not reoccur again. That is how this BBI was born. Therefore, it seeks to cure the problems that we had before the handshake, and that was a divided country. That's exactly what the BBI is trying to bring on table.
All right.
And they came up with 9 proposals that they thought, well, this is what is affecting Kenyans. And Kenyans were given a priority to go and defend or go in against them in a proposal, or to say what they need to be done in case of the fight against corruption, what the recommendations Kenya gave. That is the process that we have today, that culminated to a process where we have collected 5.2 million signatures, so that we can make this process, so that in future we can avoid such kind of a reoccurrence. But when you compare BBI and Punguza Muzigo initiative, you'll see that Punguza Muzigo, we don't know where it came from, because we are punguzing this Muzigo they are talking about, but they are not giving us a clear roadmap on how that in the issue like we have today, the current debt that we have in the country, how it can be sorted out, so that we can also start figuring out how we can also reduce the salaries through the Salary Remuneration Commission. Therefore, they had an idea. I think it was good or bad. That is Kenyans to decide, and they made their determination. But that process came from a specific quota. But this BBI is a country-wide involvement. Everybody is in cause, and we have copies that we are reading, so that we can make a determination when you're given that opportunity on the ballot paper through a popular referendum.
All right,
yeah,
very well. Thank you so much, and Honorable Nangai Gaison, you're saying you're watching from the villages of Bungoko Central in Bale District. A very good afternoon to you. Thank you for tuning in. Now, Kidi, there has been some one of the cases here of the 5. Of course, there are others, but the 5 major cases that are right now in court challenging and seeking to stop the BBI process. One of them is by economist Devin D and other activists. And in this case, High Court case argues that the process is driven by a few political bigwigs instead of a wave of change by Kenyans. They say 4 chapters of the law cannot be changed through the amendments. And I'd like to understand the first part. And I thought a popular initiative, well, Kenyans gave their signatures, and right now they've been able to collect 5 million. Does that count when you look at a popular initiative? And they're saying this process was not started, is not driven by the people. Instead, it's driven by a few individuals who are bigwigs, political bigwigs, but it's not a people's initiative. But the people gave 5 million signatures. So does this even count in law? What does this mean, Kidi?
I thank you, my sister Miriam. I took time to read the Dr. David D's petition, at least when it was captured, the sections that were captured in the press, and they are what you'd call in English that Dr. David D is quibbling. He is trying to trivialize a matter as serious as the BBI process by trying to make purport that, make it look cheaper than it is. Because one, let's go back and look at the National Accord and Reconciliation Act 2008. It was a peace process between the president and the opposition. President leading the government and Raila Odinga then leading the opposition. But then changes were made in parliament because that constitution did not have the proviso for popular initiative. So when people went to parliament and the absolute majority, 3/3 of members of National Assembly then voted to amend the constitution to create certain positions, I mean, that was not a process of two people. Right now, the BBI process started off first as a handshake between two warring factions. Of course, the factions of the opposition, NASA, and the faction that was led by the president. Because it would be naive to imagine that every person who was on the president's side was to come on board at every stage of the preliminary conversations. But then when the two gentlemen had close trunks, you also realize that one, they gave the people of Kenya an opportunity to participate first through the BBI-1 during the task force, two, through the validation process, that is the time of the steering committee, and three, now that they have asked the people of Kenya to append their signatures. And I'm proud to say that I am one of the people who appended their signatures. So yes, I would end where I started, that Dr. David Ndii is scribbling.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you so much, Athman Ayub Matumbo. Not very kind words there, but thank you so much for watching, as well as Nyamamba Kisinga, I think. Thank you so much for tuning in this afternoon. Daniel, one of other cases that are right now in the courts is that one of Nandi and Kericho County Assemblies, and they sought Supreme Court's advisory opinion on whether MCAs at the County Assembly can amend the bill sent to them for approval, and whether MCAs ought to seek views of the electorate. And should this be granted, what will this look like in all our county assemblies across the country for the MCAs to amend? And I just go ahead and respond to that, Daniel.
Miriam, that one will be the easiest way of creating chaos and really subverting the will of the people of Kenya. And of course, as Kidi has said, the BBI process was a people-driven process, and the task force moved across the 47 counties, held over 93 public participation forums, and accepted views and proposals which were given by the people of this country. And therefore, these particular proposals which are exposed in the BBI cannot be left to the discretion of the few political class members who can be able to alter them and tweak them in a way that only benefits the political class. So therefore, they have to respect that the views in the BBI report are not views that came from the political class. These are views which came from the people of Kenya. And of course, Miriam, I agree with whatever Douglas has said. I agree with whatever Javan has said, that this country has been ailing from ethnic divisions. And that began 5 years when we got the independence, when Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, the first vice president of this republic, parted ways with his boss, that is Jomo Kenyatta. And we have been on that divisive path for quite some years. And therefore, when you read about the BBI proposals, it tells you that as a country, we are on a path to redemption. And therefore, there's a need for every Kenyan of goodwill, for every leader who really has the interest of the people at heart, to really embrace the agenda that is in the BBI, the views, the proposals, so that at the end of the day, we start charting the future of this country on a clean slate. We let the people of Kenya determine their own future. We let the people of Kenya to come on board and be able to enjoy equal representation in terms of leadership, equal and equitable sharing of resources, and making sure at the end of the day, the government that is there to serve the people and not to enrich a few people in the plutocracy. So to me, I think these leaders who want to hijack the BBI process so that at the end of the day, they make changes to the document are not being honest, and they live in the echo chambers where they only listen to themselves, but not the people who they were elected to represent. Because at the end of the day, Miriam, some of these problems, I believe BBI seeks to address the most basic problem that faces the real Mwananchi at the grassroots level. And that is what we should do, because we are a third world country, and a vast number of these issues that have been raised in the BBI are the issues that affect us in our daily lives. And therefore, at the end of the day, it is the voter, it is the common Mwananchi who should have a say on the fate of the BBI. Let the county assemblies do their role, but let them not take up the mandate which was given to the task force by the people of Kenya. That will be akin to subverting the will and the views and the aspirations of the people of Kenya. So I believe, Miriam, if you allow that to happen, then the BBI process will have lost its essence, and it will not, at the end of the day, achieve the objectives that were set there by the two principles, the views and the agenda and the proposals that were given forth by the people of Kenya. So I think it is not a path that I would advise our leaders to follow, and even me as a citizen of this country, I wouldn't want such to happen, because we gave our views and we expect the MCAs only to approve the views of a majority who attended this public participation session of the BBI document.
All right, very well. So yesterday we know President Uhuru Kenyatta attended a presiding ceremony there where Christ is the Answer Ministries, that is Satan, were getting their new presiding bishop in the name of Reverend Callisto Odede. So the outgoing presiding bishop, that was Reverend Bishop David Oginde, rather said something. Let me just read a part of it. The head of state steered clear of politics. That is on page 9 of the Standard newspaper, just a part of it. The head of state steered clear of politics despite Oginde hinting that the church would like to be involved in the Building Bridges Initiative report. Oginde said the quick succession of events revolving around BBI had left the church stranded. Some of us have been thinking of how to join, but before we were ready, we heard the train had left the station, he said. And what I saw from that, President Uhuru Kenyatta talked about everything else, but did not respond to that comment at all. He did not indulge in the politics, so he was quite silent on that. But also, just two things here, Douglas. Bishop Oginde, is he being honest in his stand? Because one would argue we had 2 years. We had the first report, and then after that they went back again to seek for more opinion from Kenyans, and they came out with the steering committee, and they came out with the second report. And all this time, Kenyans from all walks of life, including the church, they had an opportunity to go and give their opinions. And Kenyans would argue, why didn't the church thereby Bishop David Oginde go and give their opinion then? And saying they're still taking their time. Before they knew it, the train had taken off, and now they're being told there's no stopping that train. And the fact that President Uhuru Kenyatta was quite silent on that matter, he did not respond to that. So two things. Bishop Oginde, is she really honest when he says that now the church wants to join the BBI process, and where have they been for the last 2 years? And also President Uhuru Kenyatta's silence. What do you discern from that? Douglas.
I'm a big fan of the approaches that are employed by the former presiding bishop of Sitam, Bishop David Oginde.
He's my bishop, but, so be kind. Go ahead.
No, I'm kind to Bishop. I have no problem with him.
Okay.
But I have a small political problem with him. Mm-hmm. The former presiding bishop of Sitam is one of the leading clergies in this country. Mm-hmm. And every conversation that has been spoken of, I've seen him write about BBI before. And it's something that he writes on newspapers, he writes his commentaries and all that. And the bishop was also at Bomas. The bishop did not mention anything that they needed, maybe a consensus or maybe putting their perspectives in that. What the bishop said, he started prophesying and saying he can only see Deputy President and Raila Odinga in one camp in 2022. He said he is praying for that, and also he is prophesying. Mm-hmm. My greatest problem with the Bishop Oginde is that now he has turned into a political commentator, whereas he is a spiritual leader of the good people of Sitam, who happens to also be my friends who go there. But the bishop fails to understand one thing, that the church has an hand-on opportunity to do that, but also the church is also being misused by political pre-day class and also hypocritical political conmen who have also hijacked the role of the church. Instead of the church being sober and also giving clear distinctive directions, devoid of politics of the day, and also devoid of the rhetoric that permits the political scene in Kenya. The good bishop has gone ahead and also tried to put his foot in politics. Maybe after his tenure as a presiding bishop, maybe his next station is to be a politician, I don't know. But the church has not been left by the BBI train. But what the church has done is that the church ignored the BBI process, thinking is a passing crown, like many have done. But I cannot be able to clearly distinguish between what Bishop Oginda is doing today and what the people who have been opposing BBI, especially some of the clergy, I cannot be able to have a clear distinction between what Bishop Oginda is doing today and what the other people are doing. But what I can be able to do to discern from that is that this bishop, when he says they wanted to board and they could not be able to board, the BBI is left in the station. This bishop is a bishop who has led the church for quite some time. He has been a presiding bishop for quite some time at Sitam. They have deadlines and also they have ways on how they run their church. He is an outgoing presiding bishop who gives deadlines to his bishops, who gives deadlines to his church and administration, and also a person that knows a process cannot be able to go on forever. There is one thing when he spoke about something, some other time I tended to agree with him, but on this one I oppose him, because if the bishop wanted to join this BBI train, him and other evangelical bishops could have joined the BBI train before and also given their voice as a church, but they didn't. What the bishop has been doing is been speaking his mind alone, and when the BBI came to be launched at Bomas, he didn't give his own mind on it. Politicians came and started giving consensus issues and all that and viewed everything. But the bishop said what he is saying is a political marriage between the deputy president and the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, instead of giving his clear position on why the church has been left behind. So one thing I can be able to gather from this is that the bishop is trying to sabotage this process, and also the bishop is trying to earn his voice, also read his voice to be used against the BBI process by the people that have been sabotaging this process and also stopping the correct will of Kenyans being done. Remember, Miriam, the people of Kenya came together and also decided now time is up for us to be able to change this constitution. It is our time to be able to check what we can be able to do with our constitution. And remember, Miriam, every popular initiative, especially referendums and also amendments of the constitutions across the world, I can point 2 or 3 that have been read by their leaders. So as a rejoinder to those people who are saying the BBI process is being read by a few people, yes, it is being read by a few people. It is them who opened our eyes and we saw our problems, and also we have now come to a conclusion that we can be able to move forward as a nation and also change our constitution. In Russia, Putin brought the constitutional change, I think 2 times now, and people have voted. David Cameron resigned from office, then left the office for Theresa May because he was defeated at the ballot. So the people were not happy with his leadership at that time when he was talking about Brexit. Then came Theresa May. Theresa May left. Then Boris came. All these people, most of the time, what they cannot tell you are these issues that are here. And we need to be able to come to terms with this opportunity that we have. And also the good bishop to also follow his followers who have abandoned their signature instead of opposing this thing, so that we can be able to move forward as a nation. We also ask the good bishop to be able to refrain from such comments, because he is a presiding bishop of a very large congregation. He can confuse his followers who have abandoned their signature and start asking for the signatures back from the task force. But one thing we can promise the bishop is that this thing is inclusive, and also I think I'm not very sure when the bishops went to call on President Uhuru Kenyatta at the State House. I think Bishop David Oginda was there. But today, maybe a few weeks later, the Bishop Oginda, who is not left in major national events, is here giving a different opinion. We don't want the bishop to deviate from its true calling. He has not been called to be a politician. He has been called to be a shepherd for the people of God, to be able to lead the church and also to give Kenya direction on the future of this country. Okay. On his prophecy about Deputy President William Ruto and Right Honorable Raila Odinga coming together, that is not a going concern now. What is a going concern is this thing is if he has not appended his signature, he can go and append his signature. Then we can move forward. Maybe we can be able to capture his other views in future when such a process comes again. Because we don't want the bishop to be left behind again.
Okay, thank you so much, Douglas. Now, Kidi, the bishop, Bishop Oginda, there said that the quick succession of events revolving around BBI had left the church stranded. But we had over 2 years to look at this BBI process, so I don't know how you'd call that quick. But also, President Uhuru Kenyatta did not respond to that at all. What do you think was the message there being sent by President Uhuru Kenyatta? And was Bishop Oginda really honest about even the church wanting to be part of this BBI when we've been having this process for the last 2 years, but they never bothered to take their time and go have their voice heard?
Now, let me analogize a little. In law, if the opposing counsel sends you a demand letter and that letter is full of trivialities, you don't honor that trivialities by substantive response. At best, you notify them that you've received their communique and you are ready to meet them in court any day. So what the president did was to give the trivialities the wide berth that it deserves. Actually, it is what I should call it the contempt it deserves. Because in my estimation, and with absolute respect to the bishop, I don't think the bishop was being genuine. Genuine because, one, there is an unholy alliance that the church has had with the people who are opposed to the BBI process. And they have become the church have become the bait with which the people who are opposed to the BBI process have hidden and attempted to hoodwink the people of Kenya. You can't call this process quick because it has been there since 2018. But then while other people were deriding this process, the church also gave it a wide berth. Then now, when we went to Bomas the last time, you remember that the bishop was keen to come up with prophecies that, of course, I want to call them manufactured, still with due respect to the bishop, of the deputy president and the prime minister working together, which of course is a possibility, but I don't think that is something that requires prophecy from a man of God. It is something that any drunkard would, a prophecy that any drunkard would say during a bar talk. So one thing that is that the church has lost its high moral ground. Because you remember when we were agitating for reintroduction of pluralism, men of God like the late Archbishop Henry Okulu, the late Archbishop Manasseh Kuria, Archbishop David Gitari were able to put their foot down for the government of the day and were able to side with the masses. Today, the likes of Oginde, the bishop, have perfected the art of making trips to Karen and picking their envelopes and occasionally showing up at State House and telling President that all is fine. And remember when the selection violence was skyrocketing. Mm-hmm. I remember Bishop Oginde, instead of calling out the government for deploying excessive force on protesters, Professor Dr. Oginde was saying that Uhuru shall pass away, Raila shall pass away. It is one of the sermons that I still think about, and it makes me cringe. So the Bible says that time is coming and time has come when those who worship me shall worship me not in Jerusalem or on this mountain, but they shall worship me in truth and in spirit. Mm-hmm. We are praying for the day when we shall have members of the clergy who shall be able to lead the people of Kenya without looking at what is in it for them in terms of monetary benefits. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Now, Javan, what the bishop was saying yesterday, that, they were the church was just getting ready to hop on the BBI train, and then they were told, oh no, it's too late. The train already left the station there. Why do you think it took them over 2 years to think about whether they need to join the BBI and they need to take a stand, and perhaps they need to be more vocal, and now they're calling for the process to be halted a little so that the church can come in on board? Was Bishop Oginde honest on his whatever it is that he was saying there? And of course, President Uhuru Kenyatta did not choose to respond to that. What message do you think President Uhuru Kenyatta was sending to the church?
Well, it is quite clear that we have a church today, modern day churches, that have lost the grips of what it used to be in past days. We have a church that is quite in politics, but not in the politics that will benefit the people of this country. They are there to make sure that they get some allowances to keep them moving. And that is a bad reality of the church that we have. And on the issue of Bishop David Oginde, the outgoing presiding bishop of Sitam Church, and you see the church, they are saying that the church was left outside. This was an initiative that everybody was invited on board. And it could be good if the bishop is telling us that this is the recommendations that the church gave, but were not captured in the BBI. That could be making more sense than what he is saying now. And when you look at it keenly, Miriam, we have a church that is divided. We have a church that have a political alliance where they have their loyalty too. We have the same church. We have a church that is in support of the BBI process. We have a church that is opposing the BBI process. Therefore, we have a church that is confused. Unless the church comes out and speaks in one voice, that is the day that maybe the members of this country will start taking them seriously and taking what they say with a lot of much dignity than what it is happening now. And you see, even the president himself could not indulge on that issue, because we know this was 2 years. They were given time to take the process. But now he is telling us that they were told that the train has already left the station. Mm-hmm. Yes, the train has already left the station. And if the bishop and those people who feel unsatisfied with the BBI process, I think every Kenyans, we had a court, they can start their own initiative of those people who are left outside the BBI process, and they can come up with a team. All these people, the civil societies, the church led of the Bishop Ogide of these days, they come together and they start formulating on issues that they feel are left out of the BBI process, and they start a contrary or another constitutional amendment process, so that Kenyans at the end of the day, we can compare notes and see, surely this church is genuine, because the kind of recommendation they are giving, this will save this country and will make this country even more united than what the BBI is proposing. But they are not giving us a solution. They are not giving us an option. That is a problem we have with these people who are calling for the consensus, mm-hmm. and saying that they were left out of this process. Unless they give us an option and they tell us why they didn't take their recommendation when we had the 2 years to take the recommendation in the task force and through the validation process, then they tell us, they come up with their own initiative. Then at that time we can take them more seriously and we can start looking onto issues that they have. And these prophecies that these churches are making today, Miriam, some of these prophecies, make them when you have eaten well. You don't just make them when you're hungry. That is the problem we have our church. They will make prophecies. You know, Miriam, today is a Sunday, and sorry to say this. And if we went around our churches today, they have one common denominator, especially this modern church called the prosperity gospel, where you are told, like, next year you are buying this car, next year you are going places, I'm seeing somebody going abroad. But these prophecies, they are just there so that these members of the church can keep coming to the church, to getting those messages, to keep them giving something small to the church. Therefore, that is the kind of prophecies that they make. Therefore, we are not surprised. But at the end of the day, any politicians in this country will work with whatever feels good in this country. This is not the first time we had the deputy president working with the former prime minister. In 2007, they were in the same camp, and they had the Pentagon, which was a very strong outfit in this country. And that is why we had the ODM of this day, and it's still one of the dominant party that we have. Therefore, any politicians, we have no amenity in these politicians. They are just friends. It's just a matter of ideologies or ideas or one or two, three things that they disagree. Okay. And that is where the difference comes. Okay. But in reality, these people are friends. They meet, they talk. We have never seen them fighting. Therefore, they can work together in future, and we can see even other politicians who we might not or see them working together in 2022, and this will come after this BBI goes through. I see big coalitions being formed and other coalitions dividing even more and reuniting to form other coalitions that were not there in 2017. Therefore, going to 2022, we'll have new coalitions, we'll have new alignment and formations. Therefore, anybody can be in any team.
Very well. Thank you, Douglas. Daniel, before we're done with this matter of Bishop Ogide, just quickly, alikuwa wapi? All this, over 2 years now, he's just woken up to the realization that the BBI process has been here, and now, the process is far gone in terms of achieving its goals, and the signatures have been presented, over 5.2 million signatures to be precise there. But he's saying, oh no, let's first hold this, this process, because we need the church to be on board, to get on board. What is that?
Miriam, the kind of church we have today is no longer the church of Archbishop Bishop Muge. It's not the church of Bishop Timothy Joya. It's not the church of Bishop David Gitari. It's not the church of Bishop Ndigi Mwananzeki, a church which was driven by integrity, a church which was principle, and above all, a church which was driven by the interest of the common man, the people that they preach to. Nowadays, the church of today wants to associate with the political elites and be able to get some good money for their church, for their own pockets. And they have become the hallmark of political bribery and blackmail in this country. We've seen a number of church leaders going in car and in droves and receiving what Kidi has called the brown envelope. Of course, those are monies which have come out of a corrupt enterprise. Deputy President, these are money which have been stolen from public coffers, which are supposed to be buying drugs for the sick, which are supposed to be building learning institutions for our children, which are supposed to be building dams, which are supposed to be building roads. But because these monies have found their way in the pockets of a few corrupt political merchants, the church has found a way of conniving and working in them in order to, in the end of the day, deny the same people who they should be protecting of an agenda which is so much dear to their own existence. And therefore, I see whatever Bishop was advocating for as not being truthful, not being honest, and I read politics in all that. And that is why when Kidi was talking, and even Douglas and Javan, he said that the president stayed aloof from commenting on the sentiments that the bishop raised during that particular event at Sitam, because he believed today's church has already taken a position. And when you see them talking and you look at the other side, the Tangatanga group, you'll be confused to imagine that perhaps these are people who have been cut from the same cloth. And therefore, the church has lost its credibility among its believers. And Miriam, this process has been the BBI process has been there for 2 years. People held, the task force held consultative meetings with various stakeholders, including the business community, including students, including youth, including women, and other special interest groups, of which the church will have found a very, very conducive environment to go before the committee and submit its views in regarding to these BBI recommendations. But as it were then, the church seemed to have taken a position which was synonymous to whatever position that the deputy president had taken, and we saw some of the church leaders really taking quite very radical positions when it came to the handshake, and that is why perhaps they chose to stay aloof from the entire process. And now, as Douglas said, they thought it was a passing cloud, something that could not materialize, and that's the gospel that William Ruto was sending to the church leaders and his supporters. But things have turned against them. The tide of change is really sweeping through across the country, and therefore they have seen that BBI is unstoppable. And now at the 11th hour, they want to be part and parcel of this particular process. Mm-hmm. But I think from my perspective, Miriam, it's a bit late. They had a time where a majority of Kenyans, everyone, had a chance to go and give their views in regards to BBI. And at this particular juncture, I think the train has already left the station. And as it were in 2010, 2005, let the church go to the no camp. That is the camp that they have been quite familiar with. I believe they are going to oppose these particular constitutional amendment changes. And we are not sorry for that. We are a democratic state, and we shall allow them to foment a force that will be able to master people and individuals who will oppose this change. But as I know, a majority of Kenyans are for BBI because the BBI report is a document which holds the redemption strategy for the people of this country. We need to chart a new path for this for our people. We need to talk a language of unity. We need to talk about future prosperity and peace for this country. And all those, Miriam, are vested in the BBI. And that is why I believe even the church should have a second thought about supporting the BBI agenda. Okay. I submit.
Thank you so much. And our time is gone. I know we're supposed to be getting into the African stories, but there's something here that in line with the BBI, that a burial that was attended to by Deputy President William Ruto and Raila yesterday. They shared a podium. I'd just like to get our thoughts very shortly, if you don't mind, make a quick remark so that we're able to cover the rest of the stories on Africa. Deputy President, the story is on page 11 of the Daily Nation. Deputy President William Ruto yesterday said he can still be brought on board by President Uhuru Kenyatta and Orange Democratic Movement ODM leader Raila Odinga to make the Building Bridges initiative more inclusive before the country holds a referendum next year. He said it is not too late for the country to reach a consensus on the report, even as Mr. Odinga insisted that the BBI train has left the station and will not turn back. The pair spoke during the burial of Matungu Member of Parliament Justice Murunga. Dr. Ruto said it is not too late to make amendments to the BBI document, adding that it is the only way to avert a polarizing plebiscite. And I don't know, Douglas. DP Ruto is saying it's not too late for him to be brought on board. He's supposed to be on board because he's part of the government led by President Uhuru Kenyatta, and he said he's supporting his boss. So this double speak and head spinning all the time from DP. I even I stopped, trying to figure him out, because he says one thing one time, says another thing the next time, and sometimes it's quite confusing even to his followers who really want to hear what it is that he's saying and what direction is he leading them towards. But now he's saying it's not too late for President Uhuru Kenyatta to bring me on board. I thought when some of his the things that he had raised on bombers during the second launch of the the BBI report was done, there are a couple of things that he mentioned and they were included in the changes there on the BBI report. That was not enough to bring him on board, but now he's still waiting to be brought on board. What perhaps can President Uhuru Kenyatta do to convince his DP to join him or to bring him on board? How should President Kenyatta go about that way? Douglas.
Miriam, let me set the record clear. Deputy President William Ruto, before 9th of March 2018, which happens to be my birthday, before that day, before the handshake came about, he knew what was happening. He chose to be watching from the entrance of Arambia Next office. That is when he used to go to Arambia Next every morning. That day, he chose to watch from the second floor of his office. Afterwards, when now the handshake morphed into something like the BBI task force, the deputy president was requested by the president of the Republic of Kenya, recommend people to the 14-member committee. He chose people from his side. He chose Major General Sehi, and also Agnes Kavindu and Matundra. And the president chose the other people. Then the process began, and the president was also periodically and also, I think, bi-weekly updating the deputy president. The deputy president is teaching the people of Kenya it is good to raise children without decency, without dignity, without honor, and also without the sense of honesty in them. Because the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya is a pathological liar. He is lying every morning, in the evening, he changes his tune. He needs to be a man and also adopt a position that is not popular or unpopular. Because either popular or unpopular, because there is no place called neutrality in politics. The deputy president is playing a very safe, as a safe pair of hands, whereas we have seen the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya get involved, and the president said in his meetings, the only thing the deputy president would do at Bomas is to smile. Then, after some minutes, he sensed danger and went and spoke to the president, and so that maybe the president will stop deriding him and telling the public the truth. The deputy president of the Republic of Kenya is not an honest public servant, and I also think the BBI process should be able to amend completely the Integrity Act and also make sure that that article on integrity in the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya, we can be able to choose our leaders based on honesty, meritocracy, and also make sure that our leaders are not people like William Ruto, who are also hybrid political conmen, who are conning their followers from morning to evening. I'm not surprised the deputy president says he should be brought on board. I am not surprised that the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya has been involved in this process. I'm not surprised that the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya has no clear roadmap, has no clear plan on where he shall go. I advised him the other day and also advised his people, they need to decide on the way they shall go. In politics, there is no here or there. You are either here or there. There is no neutral ground in politics. So the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya is a political hybrid conman who has been conning his followers for the longest time, and also a deputy president of a republic, of a sovereign state, lying that he has not been involved in a national government project that the government is backing. Because this is not an individual project, this is a project that has been embarked by the government of the Republic of Kenya, spearheaded by the president himself, but the deputy president, for his own political expediency, has chosen to take a position that is that shows Kenyans that he is our own danger in Jerusalem. We want to remind the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya, Kenyans are tired of being called by him, by his rise in politics, and also by his non-committal to this process, and also to be able to grow Kenyans together, and also link Kenyans to great peace and prosperity, and also cohesion, and also Kenya being a country that shares their prosperity with its citizens. The deputy president of the Republic of Kenya is not committed to this process, Miriam, I said before, okay. And I repeat again, the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya, in my thought, as I conclude, is one leader that people should not emulate, and also people should stop following Miriam. Because we have seen the deputy president adopt a position in the morning, in the afternoon he adopts another one, and in the evening the deputy president will adopt another one. Okay. So we cannot keep dilly-dallying the way he is doing today. He needs to decide on the way that he shall go. Him and the church were in the no camp in 2010. The same church that is dilly-dallying today, they need to decide, together with His Excellency, the Deputy President William Ruto, the Deputy Party Leader of Jubilee Party, he needs to decide on the way that he shall go. The Right Honorable Raila Odinga and the President of the Republic of Kenya have decided we need to go to a more cohesive, to a more prosperous, and a more integrated Kenya, a more peaceful Kenya with a shared prosperity, that we can be able to come together as the people of Kenya, decide on issues, disagree on issues, but we can be able to move forward. Okay. They need to go to their knock-up. They need to go and be able to oppose this document from a vantage point. Because, Miriam, we cannot afford a deputy president who wakes up and lies in a church, in a funeral.
Okay.
He lies even in front of the president of the Republic of Kenya, who is also his boss. So, Miriam, I have no kind words for the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya, and I don't feel any remorse in my heart calling him an hybrid political conman who has been taking advantage of every political event in this country to be able to shape a narrative that he has been sidelined and betrayed by his boss. Nobody has betrayed the deputy president. He has been betrayed by his own political greed and also his own political ambition to be president of the Republic of Kenya.
Very well.
And remember,
Thank
Miriam,
you.
as I conclude.
Thank you.
Remember, Miriam, as I conclude, let me make this point. The people of Kenya who elect their own president, the people of Kenya who decide who shall become president, your own ambition alone cannot take you to State House. So the deputy president should remember it is the same people who is lying and calling every morning and evening with ideas and lies that who shall decide who shall become the president, and we have the votes to be able to decide that. So there is any other way he needs to adopt a position, either no or yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Douglas. Samuel Lee, you're saying the only right for those who's rejected the BBI is for them to vote no on BBI. Kenya is a democratic country indeed. And Samuel, thank you so much for tuning in this up. No, I think it's morning, if I'm not very wrong. I think you're watching from the US there. So thank you so much for your comment there. So the ANC leader urged Kenyans, also Musalia Mudavadi was on that burial, and he had an opportunity to speak yesterday, and he urged Kenyans to pass the BBI and pave the way for the country's economic recovery. We will delay our recovery if we postpone BBI, Mr. Mudavadi said. He asked Dr. Ruto to drop the calls to have the referendum alongside the general election. And of course, from the speeches, the party leaders present laid the groundwork for a fierce campaign in the Matungu by-election when it is called. So ANC leader there, Jevan, is saying we need to get over this process, because if we keep dilly-dallying with this BBI process, we have a long road to recovery. We know the effects of COVID-19 and the water blow it has dealt to our economy. And so an ANC leader is saying we cannot keep talking, revising, going back, getting opinions and all this. We cannot keep doing this. We need to go ahead, have a vote on this process, get over it, and then we move on with other things that are also important for this country. But DP Ruto is saying it's not too late for President Uhuru Kenyatta to bring me on board. Do we need to just, how is President Uhuru Kenyatta supposed to do that? Do we drag the DP on board? How would you advise President Uhuru Kenyatta to bring his DP on board there, Javan?
Yeah, one thing, Miriam, that we must agree, we have a presidency that is combined of two, that is made of two people, the president and the deputy president. And when we went to cast our vote, we elected the president as a pair with the deputy president. Therefore, anything that the government is doing, they are the government of the day. And it is quite unfortunate that we have a leader who is opposing the government that is supposed to be ensuring that it delivers service to the people of Kenya, that it eradicates the poverty, the disease, the illiteracy level in this country. Therefore, that one, to my take, is a failure in the side of them. I think in the end, this issue that the deputy president has not come out clear to make sure to prove that he is a person who can deliver services to the people of Kenya. But contrarily, he comes out as a person who fights anything that he seems and he thinks that it might hamper or interfere with his 2022 presidential election bid. And that is exactly what is happening. That is why, after all the involvement, after President bringing him on board on matters of the BBI, he has gone out there to start opposing and calling for more changes. And Miriam, for the sake of it, and for the sake of this process, and for the sake of time, because we must work with a timeline, the deputy president is asking now, these recent times, for unachievable and realistic recommendations that can only be meant when we disregard the whole BBI process and we start afresh. And that is not where we want to go. Because when you tell us to go for a referendum and the same day with the general election, when you tell us to take our women from Senate to national parliament, Miriam, we must understand that we need the two-third gender rule will apply in Senate, to apply in the National Assembly. Therefore, he should first appreciate that in Senate, we have a 50-50 kind of a scenario, where it's 47-47. We should be working on to ensure that we have that kind of equality in the parliament. And that to say, we have women who have run successfully for political offices. This is to prove that it is possible to have women even becoming majority in future in our parliament. Therefore, we should empower women more. not only through these women representative position, but to have them represent a constituency, represent a people, and represent a group of people. And I agree with Musalia Mudavadi. You know, the problem with these leaders, sometimes they don't come clearly. But nowadays, I see Mudavadi is trying to come loudly, clear, and to stand in white and black. And he is saying that we are tired of this thing. Let us go for a referendum so that we can work on an economic recovery strategy. That one I agree. We have having 2 years. We have collected signatures. Therefore, let's go for the referendum. And if these people have numbers, why are they fearing to go and to oppose this thing? Because it's not good. It has not met their threshold to be called a successful and progressive process. Why are they fearing to go on a process where they will oppose it directly or where they can make their numbers work? Therefore, let's go for this thing. Let's do we move a step at a time. We finish with the BBI so that we can work on our recovery economic strategy, as Mudavadi says, because we have a COVID-19 that have ravaged our lifestyle, the way we do things, our businesses are not in cost. Therefore, we need to have this process done in time so that we can also have ample time to prepare for 2022 general election. And that is the direction we want to take. Yeah. And for the side of the former prime minister, he was quite categorical that at the end of the day, and this is a point I want to make as I conclude, nobody has monopoly of any region that you say that you'll take your party there, and no other parties should come and position sponsor a candidate. And he said when times comes, he and the ODM and other parties should file a candidate in Matungu. Therefore, that is the kind of democracy we want. We want even in Mount Kenya to have ODM, KANU, and all these parties so that we can have a choice to choose between these leaders and to see who is good and to take this country forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Kidi, still on the same, Deputy President saying it's not too late for President Uhuru Kenyatta to bring him on board. And Mudavadi, we know he was quite hesitant from the start of this process, and he raised a couple of issues on the first launch of the BBI, but a lot of them, he says, were met. And now he's okay. Even after the second launch, he had some discomfort with a few articles there on the BBI, but once they were able to be addressed, Mudavadi has come out clearly and is saying, you know what, sometimes you don't get everything that you wish for, but if majority of the things that are important to you have been met, then it's a give situation. You cannot get everything you want 100%, and for that reason, he came out clearly and he said, I'm supporting this process. But that is not what we've been seeing coming out from the Deputy President. He's been demanding and asking a couple of the things that he had raised there. They've been able to be included in the BBI, but he's saying that is not enough. He's still calling for more consensus. He's still waiting for President Uhuru Kenyatta to bring him on board. And at this point, I don't know, is he perhaps biting too much that he can chew?
As Miriam, democracy by its very design is that you do not get 100% of all that you want, at least not in one go, so that you make progress and make progress and make progress. William Ruto, I must say, has not been sidelined, but he chose to sideline himself from this process. And now that we are in the tail end of this process, what he is seeking to achieve with the calls for consensus and blah, blah, is that he is now seeking for an opportunity to engage in political posturing that if taken seriously, is that he's going to derail this process so much such that the moment we are going to realize, it shall be too late and they shall have achieved their primary goal of saying that let the changes take place in 2022. The understanding is that this configuration as it is, supposedly, I don't know where they get that notion from, is favorable to them. So yes, the calls for consensus are meant to buy time so that we get to 2022 and we go to another polls when we are much more divided than we've ever been. Thank you.
All right, very well, Daniel, close it for us on that matter. Is Daniel there? Okay, he's not there, but of course, we shall see how that will play out as the week starts. We know the country is at a high political octane right now, so let's just see how that will play out in this coming week, and we turn our attention to other stories across the continent, and we start with Uganda. Will there be a free and fair elections? This Ugandan story just gives me migraine, but you know what, let's just talk about it today. Last Monday, following weeks of deadly encounters between its supporters and Ugandan security agencies, Robert Kyagulanyi's National Unity Platform tweeted, "This is a war, not presidential campaigns." A few hours later, a police car ran over his supporters in an attempt to block the opposition presidential candidate from accessing a campaign rally venue. One supporter was killed and at least 4 others injured. And before that, about 54 people had died a couple of weeks ago. Now, at the next campaign stop, police fired tear gas and live bullets to disperse his supporters. The injured this time included one of the police guards officially allocated to the candidate, shot in the face with a rubber bullet. That is, his security detail also was shot at by the security forces there in Uganda. At a third rally of the day, police fired live bullets at the candidate's car as he attempted to drive through a military barricade set up to block him from driving through the center of Jinja city center. One bullet struck the windscreen of Mr. Kyagulanyi's car, missing a fellow MP, Francis Zake, who was in the co-driver's seat by a whisker, and it wasn't even 4 p.m. yet. All this is happening on the same day. Mr. Kyagulanyi had seen enough. He suspended his campaigns, returned to Kampala, and met the Electoral Commission chairperson to demand an intervention. I don't even have much to say about this story. But Douglas, what is your opinion?
There will be no free elections in Uganda. General Museveni is determined to steal elections, and he is aided by the sleeping AU, and also East Africa community is also asleep. And also the international community is also turning a blind eye on Uganda. One thing I can assure you is that there will be no elections, scientific or no scientific, there will be no elections in Uganda. And there's nothing that is going to be done to Museveni. Museveni seems to have forged a friendship with the regional leaders and also African leaders, that they rely on him for some things. And also, I was reading something from a sitting president, about his opinion on President Museveni. And I came to realize that they are not going to support anyone else rather than President Museveni. And I believe that Kyagulanyi is also young. He can try his luck in future. I hope that he can be president in Uganda in 2021 in January. But I hope now he is not going to be president, because we have seen Museveni, the international community is not condemning what is happening in Uganda. The EU is not condemning what is happening. And also, the East Africa community, we have not seen the chairman of East Africa community talk about it. What we are seeing is a continuing suppression of the will of the people of Uganda. What we are seeing is a grandfather beating his grandchildren. And also what we are seeing is a leader trying to also curtail and also completely shun others away from the political process, and also a leader that supports justice for the people, and also a leader that does not respect the right of the Ugandan people to elect a leader that they want. Mm-hmm. But I pray for the people of Uganda, especially those that have lost their lives, and also pray that the heart of General Museveni softens and maybe goes home. But remember, power is for keeping. Power is not for distributing or also leaving to anyone. So General Museveni is not going to leave power easily. I believe power is for keeping 100%. And Kyagulanyi should also understand that at this time, my prayers are with him. But as far as the people of Uganda and the clear elections, Miriam, and free and fair elections in Uganda, the people of Uganda receiving justice and also receiving free and fair elections at the ballot, that is not possible. I wish the people of Uganda all the best. In a month's time, they shall be voting for scientific elections.
Scientific elections there. Javan, what is your opinion on what is going on there in Uganda? And, Douglas has brought up the issue of the East African community and why they're not holding Uganda accountable. We have about 6 countries in the EAC. That will be Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, and the latest there, South Sudan. And majority of these countries seems to be having a problem, one or another, in their own internal issues there, or even with other country there. And so that begs the question, why do we even need such blogs, if at all even they cannot stand up and speak about things like this? Have we become complacent?
No, Miriam, let me say we have not lost realistic, but what we have is a sleeping giant that is not up to task, and I think that is a failure of the leadership of this body. But when you look at this question whether the people of Uganda should expect a fair and credible, verifiable election, then you can see, because election is a process, and the election starts from the nominations. We come to the civic education, we go to this process of campaign and so on. Therefore, as from onset, they have never been a factor of credibility, because we see the constitution was to be amended to see the president, the incumbent president, extend his term. Therefore, from that one moment, that is where this problem lies. And you see, after that, we have the process has not been quite fair. We have seen the intimidation of the press. We have seen the intimidation of the opposition, and the intimidation of foreign journalists in matters of coming to observe what is really happening there. And we have seen people killed. Therefore, we can say, because we can read signs that this process is not quite fair, and is something that is not scientific at all, and as Museveni calls it, this is as should they work for some extent, because as it is now, you cannot intimidate the opposition. You cannot have an electoral commission that works in your favor and talk of a credibility in that election. That is a failed system. That is a failed process. And when you look at the kind of campaign that Bobby Wine has brought of these it is quite similar to this pastoralism agenda that we have in this country, though he calls them the ghettos and these people who are downtrodden and so on. And you see, it's quite getting momentum, but I don't see like it's ripe to outshine and to take Museveni out of power. But Museveni, from where I sit, I can see he have learned a lesson that these people, their voice must be heard. And I think in future, you will start restructuring some structures, some government institutions, so that he will leave a country that is quite fair. But as now, Museveni has deep roots in Uganda. He controls everything. And I see that he will be re-elected into office. As it happened in Tanzania, we foresaw it. And this one, I see a situation. But for the onset, the people of Uganda, they have started. They are there. They are where we are in 1990s. In early 1990s, where we were calling for the repeal of Section 2A to have multi-party democracy, and the people went on street. Yes, we went for 10 more years, but at the end of the day, we had a diversity of parties, and people were able to bring new ideas on board, and that is what is happening. This is the start of a big process in Uganda that will culminate even to Museveni leaving offices and having a person who represents the people, not Bobby Wine. I'm not saying Bobby Wine or Kizza Besigye or any other person, but they'll have a person who reflects the will of the people in future.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know if Daniel is back. Daniel, are you back? Maybe not. He's experiencing a bit of a problem with his signal there. But Kitty, we see the current chairperson of the East African community, that is President Paul Kagame of Rwanda. And if you've been following, because we've been here, the relationship between Uganda and Rwanda has been very frosty. Matter of fact, last year and early this year, the borders were closed and they're each accusing each other. Rwanda is accusing Uganda of harboring some rebels there who are planning to a coup against President Paul Kagame, and Uganda is accusing Paul Kagame of sending some spies in the country. So it's been a tug of war, and now we see Paul Kagame is the chairperson of the EAC, and I'm not sure because I did not check, so I do not want to speak from a place of not knowing. I don't know if President Paul Kagame, as the chairperson of East African Community, has even sent out a statement yet on the stand of the EAC, but also due to the relationships between these two countries, if he was to send a statement, would President of Uganda, Yoweri Museveni, take it very kindly? Will he look at it as this is the position of the EAC, or this is just another personal problem and opinion that is coming there from President Paul Kagame? So I think that even puts, President Paul Kagame as the chairperson of EAC in a very delicate situation right now. So I don't know, that's why they're not able to speak on what is going on there in Uganda, or I don't know what's really happening there. I don't know. What do you make of everything that is happening there in Uganda? And have you all become complacent in what is happening there? And, it happened in Tanzania. So I mean, war is happening in South Sudan, and I mean, war is happening there in Rwanda. We see even how President Kagame has been accused of being a dictator and all that, but nobody seems to be, the East African community, which seems to be very good in the business of minding our own business. But is it the right thing? Have we become complacent?
The problem in Uganda is not isolated. You realize that for about 5-6 years now, democracy globally has suffered a major setback, in part because of the emergence of far-right regime, including the outgoing US president, including Brexit, including emergence of Putin, closer home emergence of Magufuli, and of course, the Rwandese president, Paul Kagame, has got no democratic credentials. So that may have dampened the need for accountability, especially from the international and regional leaders, because at the international level, very few leaders have got the credibility to call out a despot. Therefore, even at the regional level, the despots have now found company in their allies, because Kagame, without coherent democratic credentials, that in itself denies him the legitimacy to call out Museveni, because he has also dealt ruthlessly with the people who have been opposed to his regime. A lot of times people have said that, especially Kenyans, have said that they want benevolent dictator. One thing I would say from the outset is that there is nothing benevolent about dictatorship. All governments derive their just power from the consent of the governed. And the only way the consent of the governed is obtained is through a democratic process of the election. When Museveni is left with the options of having to land very heavily on the opponents by attempting to assassinate them, by beating them up, by locking them up. If it is not Shagulani, it is Professor Dr. Stella Nyanzi. If it is not Nyanzi, it is Kiza Besije. A time has come that the ordinary people, especially now because in the information age, we are able to communicate instantaneously. It is a time has come for ordinary people to begin demanding that let Museveni uphold the bare minimum of democratic practices. He must respect opponents. He must give the opponents the space to campaign, because it is in that space to campaign that the people are able to figure out which faction speaks for them. But then when the president is deploying fear, he is reinforcing the siege mentality, then he is denying the people of Uganda the opportunity to choose the leadership they want, which is a disaster in itself.
All right, very well. Thank you so much. And of course, we shall continue following this story. We know Uganda, as I said there earlier, is going on to its elections. earlier next year. That is next month. We used to say it as if it was very far off. It's here. And so we've seen those tactics there being employed by the government. And wow, it's quite very disheartening there. And something that you mentioned, all these East African countries, no one has a moral authority to speak on what the other person is doing, because we all have our own share of the abuse of the constitution, the lack of respect of the rule of law. We've all had our share. And so it's very difficult for somebody to just stand and, and we all molested the opposition and all that. So it's very difficult there for anybody to stand and point a finger at what is happening there in Uganda against the opposition. So we move on to Ghana, which is also gearing up for its election. And Ghana is doing well. You would say it's one of the countries in Africa that is considered to be democratic, according to the factors that are looked at there to rank a country about how it's doing on its democracy. And it's only one of only 4 sub-Saharan African countries ranked free in 2020 on the Freedom in the World Index that measures political rights and civil liberties. In addition, Ghana has a strong independent broadcast media and consistently ranks in the top 3 countries in Africa for freedom of speech and press freedom there. And this year's election, a dozen candidates are running for president, but only 2 are serious contenders, and that is the former President John Mahama of the National Democratic Congress and the incumbent President Nana Akufo-Addo of the New Patriotic Party. And we know Akufo-Addo is the one who removed Mahama, who served 1 term, but now Mahama is coming back. Akufo-Addo and Mahama have both only served as president for a single term, although both have also been active in high-level politics for more than 2 decades. And I saw somebody commenting on social media. They are saying, Ghana is going for its election. We're not seeing opposition being brutalized. We're not seeing anybody being tear gassed. We're not seeing anybody being murdered. An electoral official there being murdered. I mean, this Ghana must be out of Africa. Have we, Douglas, are we so used to very bad electoral practices in this country? Even in Ghana, it's not perfect. But that when we see a country trying to do it right, we are shocked.
Miriam, on Monday, my friend John Mahama Dramani will be on the ballot against Nana, who is also his own political rival. But one at what Ghana is doing today is that Ghana put themselves on a pedestal that they cannot be able to come down again. The other day, we saw the peace signing pact between former President John Mahama Dramani and also Nana Akufo-Addo. They were signing saying we shall accept the election results and we shall also make sure that whatever the outcome, we shall receive it. But people should also understand why politicians, especially when you are a top contender against an incumbent in Ghana, you cannot misbehave the way Africans misbehave. Ghana has put themselves into a pedestal that they cannot be able to come. They are in a high horse, they cannot be able to come down again. Because one thing that Ghana has been able to perfect is their respect to the rule of law and also promotion of democratic tendencies and also lifting of democratic practices in their politics and all that. And also remember, Ghana is one of those countries that are invested in the year of return. And also, so many people and so much investment is coming into the country, such that politicians would rather do a backdoor deals instead of coming here out and fighting and also making sure investment runs away from Ghana. When Ghana overtook every other country and became one of the safest places and also declared free, especially even this year, I think they have been declared free, and also so many other things, people would think Ghana is one of those best countries that ever happened after the sliced bread. But no, that is one gimmick that they have to keep putting up with because they cannot be able to afford losing the billions of dollars that are ejected every day in Ghana. For example, there's an actor called Johnson who came to Ghana and also went to Liberia from Hollywood. He brought about a 700 member of delegation to be able to do development in Ghana and also do development in Liberia. And when they came to those countries, it also prompted President Barack Obama to come to Ghana. So they wouldn't want to miss a chance to be able to host these things, because when these things come to their country, when these readers come to their country, when the commendations are good about Ghana, development will always come to Ghana. But we are looking at two friends and rivals on Monday who are going into election. How does it portend for Ghana? Are they the best choices for Ghana? No, they are not the best choices for Ghana. My friend John Mahama, I support him very much. I support the NDC. But now the NPP is not also the best thing that happened to Ghana, because the two leaders have weak records of fighting corruption. And also remember when John Mahama was in power, the 2013 youth scandal, that over 500 million USD that was given for upgrading and also making sure that youth got skills to be able to make money and all that. 80% of that money was stolen by cronies from John Mahama administration. But remember, Nana Akufo-Addo road to power through an anti-corruption platform is also criticized at home. The other day I saw the Good Morning Ghana channel be able to put what Nana Akufo-Addo was saying in 2016 when he was running and also campaigning. They were asked, Mr. President, did you say that? Have you been able to fight corruption as you said? He said, structural things and all that. He started murmuring about his record on corruption. Ghanaians today have an opportunity to be able to choose between John Mahama Dramani and also Nana Akufo-Addo, but none of them is better because their development, their fight on corruption is very weak, Miriam. And also there's something that we should be able to look at when we talk about Ghana in this point in time. In 2019, I think there's a report that said that their head of procurement was selling contract for a profit. That is a person that is supposed to be very clean, and he had to resign and also leave office. That person is free. People that stole money in 2013 and for the youth are still free today. Is John Mahama promising to jail them when he comes back to power? Hell no. Is Nana Akufo-Addo saying that he's going to jail the people, the leader of procurement agency? No. They are not talking about that because their record about corruption is very weak. But I hope that it is going to be for the better of the people of Ghana, and also for them, whoever will be voted for president, because either of them has to be president on Monday. So whoever will be voted the president of Ghana, may they take Ghana forward and also continue fighting corruption. What they are doing today is not enough. In Ghana, we have been told that they are free, but they are not free. They are not free as we can say. Even the freedom of press in Nana Akufo-Addo, who said and also wrote to power, saying he shall protect the freedom of media. The freedom of press has been eroded in Ghana, and those problems are bedeviling Ghana, and international agencies have been watching. So, but one thing we can be able to say is that Ghana has been able to project themselves as the leaders in Africa in terms of open space for politics, and also openness in terms of the electoral process, and also upholding democratic processes and also practices. And I wish them all the best as they go to election on Monday. But I wish mostly my friend John Mahama Dramani all the best on Monday's
even with all that tainted record there, you still wish him the best. And we know that there are 16 candidates to choose from. So Ghanaians are spoiled for choice. You don't have to choose the former President Mahama or the current President Nana Akufo-Addo. You have another 14 others to choose from if you feel these two do not represent your aspirations as a citizen there in Ghana. But something else there that you've mentioned, I don't know who is present there. Kidi, are you? Good afternoon. All right, so I don't know if we have a Karanja still.
Yes, I'm here.
Very well. So now something there that Douglas have brought up, and that is Ghana has been able to place itself on a pedestal, and we've seen that paying off very well, and we've seen how the politicians, conduct themselves, and how, whatever Douglas has said, that they'd rather have backsided deals there in politics than bring the war, the outright war that we see a lot of times in the African politics, the aggression, all that sometimes cost a country a lot of investment, a lot of opportunities, a lot of other things that the outside world looks at, especially how we conduct our elections before they decide to come in and decide, okay, is Kenya a very safe place for us to make an investment? Is Kenya a very safe place for us to have an exchange of some sort or whatever it is? And so Ghana has been able to work on this very well. It's not perfect, and even when it comes to the freedom of press freedom there, Ghana ranks number 3 in the continent, so that is not too bad. But we've seen the former president Mahama coming back and wanting to run again. And when he was defeated by now the current president Akufo-Addo, we did not hear him go out in the streets. And we know incumbents never lose in this continent. I don't care what it is. Incumbents never lose in this continent. But he was graceful about it, and now he's coming back and seeking for another term, if at all Ghanaians will be able to allow him to be a president again in that country. So obviously Ghana is not perfect, but it's trying to get its act together and it's trying to do the right thing. I don't know, what are your expectations even as they go to the election, and what perhaps can Africa learn from the politics in Ghana?
One thing, Miriam, Ghana is not the first time that you are seeing it in that kind of a pedestal level of where they can be looked at an example. We had the Kwame Nkrumah and those people who worked very well to champion for the unity of purpose in the whole of African continent. And I think that is something that he warned us of this segregation. And for him, he was for a kind of one unified African country that could have these other states as governed by other people, but not president. But we could have one commanding center for the entire whole of Africa. But that is, he warned that if we go for these small units, then we might not be able in future to coordinate issues progressively, or the issues that will affect the whole of African, or to have solutions that will cater for the whole African problems uniformly. And to say that, and when you look at the current situation, therefore this is from the foundation that we had from the onset of Ghana. And the one thing we have seen clearly is the kind of politics that they do. And you have asked whether the other African countries should learn something from. Yes, they should, because you have seen the John Mahama, you have seen Nana Akufo doing a very good campaign. And these people, they have also signed an agreement that at the outcome of these results, I will accept the veto of the people of Ghana. And that comes because they have trust in their institution. Therefore, something else that we must have, these other countries around Africa, we must have a confidence in the institution that we have, be it the electoral commissions, be it the intelligence and so on. Because when we create confidence, when we create that analogy of trusting on what they do, they tend up having morale to do better and to improve on the areas that they feel are taking them down. But if we try to demystify them, we try to diminish them and to look to belittle this institution, that is why we end up also having disrespect between this institution and the governing parties. That is the kind of problem that we end up having. Therefore, one thing that I feel is good is the institution. That is to show the institution are good. And number two is a kind of politics. You see, these people, when John Mahama left office, he didn't do it dramatically. We have incumbent, and Miriam, we have said it clearly. It is known in this Africa, the entire African continent, that you cannot, especially the incumbent, they cannot leave office unless they have completed their constitutional term or their constitutional mandate.
And even with that, Javen, they will conclude that, but they'll still try to manipulate the constitution in the case of Alpha Conde of Guinea, in the case of Ivory Coast President Alassane Ouattara. They still serve their term, and they decide it's not enough. In the case of Yoweri Museveni, and they decide I'll still be here, and so I'll change the constitution to serve my own personal interest. So we've seen a lot of constitutional coups in the African countries, but that is not the case with Ghana there.
Yeah, that is it. And you have seen we have leaders, and this is what we call servant leadership, where you put the interest of the country first than your personal interest. Because if John Mahama was of a contrary opinion and not to leave office, maybe Ghana could not be where it is now. But he left office in quite in a very humane way, and that is the kind of things that we need to learn from there. And number two, we also need to learn this thing of having leaders who try to communicate, not to incite. Because I have followed the Nana Akufo campaigns for a while, and I see they are not using this kind that we have the incitements, where you go inciting people along the tribes. They are trying to bring issues, and that is something that I've seen, and it's really worked well, and I see it's something that is quite to appraise in the whole of African country, where we have leaders who start selling ideas rather than selling divisions along ethnic-based and community class struggles. Therefore, that's something else that I have come to see in that entire campaign. And number two, we also see now, after this issue, the people of Ghana, they have a press that is quite free. And Miriam, we see the press is what shapes the society, because at the end of the day, the media remains the mirror of the society. And if we have a media that is free from biasness, a media that is free from intimidation from the government or from the opposition, we end up having an electorate, we end up having a citizen that are able to know what affects them, what is good for them, and they are able even to see what they need. And that is exactly what is happening in Ghana, because we have a freedom of media where journalists can come up with good ideas. And we have journalists. And when you look at the journalists that we have there, these are journalists who are quite different, because they end up looking to issues rather than the kind of journalists we have here, who some quarters call them Githeri medias and the Githeri journalists, who end up saying what favors them. But we have people who are analyzing things critically. And when you look at some of these journalists, you can only compare them with some of journalists that we see in CNN, who are quite critical on issues rather than the personality. And that is something that is quite impressive. And other countries should learn to have a free media so that we have society. Because Miriam, what will you feed people? You feed people. That is what they end up buying. And when you feed them on issues of ideas rather than tribes and so on, these people end up to change their mentality. And that can only be, the main champion of that is the media. Because at the end of the day, we are either on social media, you are either listening your radio, or you are either on your television. Those are the people who can change the society. And that is something that have worked well on the people of Ghana. Therefore, I wish them all the best. And they have a president who they set home. And for me, if I was in Ghana, I could continue extending the term of Nana Akko. Therefore, Douglas, if we were there, I see we could be rivals. But something, we are still here in Kenya, but we'll make that decision here home in 2022. Thank you.
All right, very well. Well, you brought up the issue of international media houses like CNN and how they're able to critically analyze, and you brought up CNN there. I'm a huge fan of CNN. I love watching Don Lemon, I love watching Anderson Cooper, Jake Stapper, Chris Coleman, all those, and you can see how they analyze their issues there, but also they have not been very kind to Donald Trump. It's very difficult to be kind to Donald Trump. I know, anybody in the world, but yes indeed. So that is that. And so tomorrow, I think we shall have maybe an afternoon show, which we shall continue looking at that and also other issues across Africa. So if you don't mind, tomorrow in the afternoon, you might want to join me for another show. But right now, let's just, because our time is really, really going, let's quickly look at this matter on Somalia. And the U.S. President Donald Trump has ordered the withdrawal of nearly all U.S. troops from Somalia by 15th of January, the Pentagon has said. The U.S. has about 700 troops in the country helping local forces battle Al-Shabaab and Islamic State militants. U.S. officials said some of the troops could move to neighboring countries, allowing for cross-border operations. In recent months, President Trump has issued similar orders to reduce U.S. forces in Iraq and Afghanistan. He has long called for U.S. troops to come home and has criticized the U.S. military interventions for being costly and ineffective. Some experts have warned that the U.S. withdrawal would embolden militants in the Horn of African country. Somalia has suffered decades of political instability, but in recent years, a peacekeeping force from the African Union along the U.S. troops have reclaimed control of Mogadishu and other areas from Al-Shabaab and Al-Qaeda affiliate. And of course, AMISOM is also very present there in Somalia, trying to restore some peace and stability. So, the outgoing U.S. President Donald Trump has been making some very, what you would call, erratic decisions on his last days as the president. Of course, yesterday he was on a campaign trail in Georgia, and he still says, the elections were stolen, and he's still hoping he'll be, he'll take the oath of office for his second term, and he's just living in an alternative, what you would call an alternative universe there. So it's been very difficult. But what we've been seeing him do is sort of set up the incoming president, Joe Biden, because some of these decisions he's been making, the intelligence community in the U.S. has been telling him it is not safe for us to pull our troops from Afghanistan. It is not safe for us to pull our troops from Somalia. It is not safe for us to pull our troops from Iraq and Iran. And these are the places across the world that the U.S. has been very present and part of their, the foreign mission in different countries across the world. But it's like he wants to prove something. And when he is pulling out, say, soldiers, like he is withdrawing soldiers from Somalia, and we know Somalia still needs a lot of help. Somalia is not stable. Somalia is not able to take care of itself. Somalia still needs a lot of help, and the U.S. has been doing a great job in terms of even collecting intelligence and in some of these operations that have been happening, and we've been seeing a lot of attacks from the U.S. that have killed, the Al-Shabaab there in Somalia. So for the U.S. to think this will be the right time to pull out, in my opinion, and you will come in and tell me what you think, I think it's sort of a setup. He's setting up Joe Biden. So when he comes in, he's coming into a very, volatile reception from some of these, foreign policies that the U.S. has been having, and some disengagements the U.S. has been having in with other countries, and so everything will just be chaotic, and so Joe Biden will not even know where to start with some of these issues, because even his intelligence community has told him, no, we cannot pull out. No, it's not safe. But he's still so erratic. He just goes ahead and does it anyway. And so here we are. Now the troops from the U.S. will be pulled out before end the 15th of January. Just a couple of days, maybe 2 or so, 3, before the next president is sworn in. What do you make of all this? And will this increase a lot of instability in this region, because we know the insecurity in Somalia is affecting especially Kenya. So what would that mean for us here, Douglas?
I think the president of the US, Donald Trump, is not right to do what he's done, because one of the things that the US has been able to do using their foreign policy is to be able to make sure that regions are secure, make sure that countries are secure, and also to make sure that the interests of the USA across the world are taken care of. One of the greatest mistakes of that statement, when I heard that the US President Donald Trump has withdrawn forces from Somalia, I knew he has made at least 3 or 2 major mistakes that cannot be able to be reversed in the coming days, or even coming months, or even years. Because one thing that we know about the war in Somalia is that the USA has not been completely in charge of Somalia. In Somalia, the larger part of it has been occupied by the terrorists and also other militant groups. But USA acting in Somalia, and also the AMISOM forces and all that, they have been able to put pressure on militants so that there are no major bombings and all major attacks from the terrorist groups and all that. But now we are seeing, when now the troops are withdrawn now, because I think they are being withdrawn immediately, when they have withdrawn these troops today, we are seeing a situation where USA is going to leave a fragile country, to leave a very fragile region. The Horn of Africa is a very fragile region today. Remember, Eritrea is still there. Remember what is happening in Ethiopia. Remember what Al-Shabaab have been able to do to Kenya because of our Operation Bida Inchi involvement in Somalia, and also the conflict that Kenya has together with Somalia on maritime borders and all that. But one of the problems that we will be able to have now is a win for the terrorists. I think whatever terrorists are, they are celebrating now because they can be able to move without the pressure of U.S. forces on the ground. They can be able to move without the pressure of U.S. presence and also the domineering big brother across Somalia. And also we can never have a good time or also a better time or also a good time for US to live in a volatile region. Remember, we are in a situation where forces, militant and also militias and their forces have taken hostage of a country and also taken hostage of their resources and all that. We can never have such a situation where we can be able to just wake up and live like Donald Trump has been able to do in Somalia. And also remember the elections of Somalia are in 2 months' time. So during that time, we are going to leave an opportunity for people that are getting their support from militias also to have complete damage on Somalia, and also be able to erode the gains that have been able to be done security-wise in Somalia. Another thing that I think we can be able to deduce from what Donald Trump did the other day is that he has no interest in supporting Joe Biden 100%. He wants to sabotage everything that Joe Biden would want to start from. The coronavirus we have seen in the USA, he has been able to go ahead and take advantage of the vaccine, but we have seen him abscond duty, saying the responsibility that does not lie with him. Now, including now when he withdraws the US forces across in a very untimely manner like that, Joe Biden will have a very forced start when it comes to terrorism and across Africa and also across the world. So in terms of his approach to these terrorism issues, Joe Biden will have a very bad start, and that is to the chagrin of the outgoing president, Donald Trump. So I think he's just sabotaging the agenda of the incoming administration of Joe Biden. One of the things that we can be able to advise Joe Biden to do immediately when he assumes power on January 20th is to restore the forces in Somalia so that they can have an eventual or partial withdrawal of these forces, because we cannot afford to remove the American soldiers in Somalia today, because we have a very unstable Ethiopia, Eritrea, and also Kenya. In some northeastern parts of Kenya, we have no stable borders because of Al-Shabaab and the threats that they pose to our country. So I think that Donald Trump, that what I can take from is just sabotaging Biden, and also making sure that the gains that have been done about terrorism across Africa, he has been able to reverse all of them. In America, we are seeing him reverse that. We saw him come out of a Paris Climate Act. We've seen him withdraw from that. We have seen him undo many gains that have been able to be done by the United States of America. But we also prayed for the people of Somalia that these terrorists will not overwhelm them, and also AMISOM will not follow suit and also withdraw their forces there, especially the Republic of Kenya.
All right, thank you. Javan, conclude for us.
Thank you, Miriam. And this is my conclusion. I'll say that the US and everybody else, we have a duty to play as Africans to ensure that we fight these terrorists around our country. And we can by having our own solutions. We try to find our own solutions in home so that we can be able to stand there in future to be counted as people who have their solutions, so that when these other groups, the foreign companies are coming, to be coming just to top up and to increase the momentum that we already have in the fight against terrorism. And on the issue of Donald Trump revoking the U.S. armies from the Somali, I see as a setback on the gains that we have made on the fight against terrorism. And I think these are the foreign policies that we have in the U.S. They are not much on the issue of and making African more better or something, but they are just there to make sure that at the end of the day, there's something that they are getting in return. Therefore, this kind of intimidation and exploitation will come to an end when African will stand strong. So we will not be relying on policies made in US to better our continent. Therefore, that is my take on that, and thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you, Javan Karanja from Nanyuki. Thank you, Douglas Kirimi from Meru. And also thank you. Earlier we had Kidi Mwanga, who I think suffered a technical hitch there, as well as Daniel Wesonga, so they left the conversation a bit earlier. But also one of the topics we were to look at today, I'll just read through and we will not comment on it quickly, and then I'll just close the show. And that is South Africa, where President RAMAPHOSA is facing a vote of no confidence. A no confidence motion against South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has been pushed till February next year. The Speaker of the South African Parliament said the move was to allow whether the vote should be held in secret ballot. The motion was tabled by one of the country's smallest opposition party, the Africa Transformational Movement. The party has only 2 regional government representatives. ATM was formed in 2008 and has a backing from the Council of Messianic Churches in Christ. Some analysts have linked Zuma to the party and is also widely seen as a gaining support from some political divides from the ruling National Congress Party. While the bill is most likely to fail given the complex nature of the ANC party members, it's also a sign of displeasure among a few party members. ANC is expected to hold its National General Council that will attract over 3,000 delegates. The meeting is set to assess ANC performances so far under President Cyril Ramaphosa. President Ramaphosa has been fighting to clear his name in an election malpractice on campaign funding allegations. And of course, Mr. Ramaphosa, according to South Africa's anti-corruption watchdog, is alleged to have misled Parliament about money he received in 2017 worth more than $36,000 US. And Mr. Ramaphosa maintains it was a donation towards his campaign for the ANC leadership. President Ramaphosa has staked his reputation on cleaning up the country's politics since he replaced former President Jacob Zuma. So as I said, we will not comment on this topic, but we shall look at it tomorrow in depth, probably on our afternoon show. Thank you so much. This has been Africa Showdown. My name is Miriam Ogutu. Enjoy the rest of your day.